Hey there, welcome back to the Support Ops Hangout. This is our weekly podcast that helps you deliver a better support experience to your customers. I'm your host, Chase Clemens. So this week, it's episode 111, all about finding a mentor. We're going to look at why finding a mentor is important and how to make it happen. But before we do that, let's go ahead and meet the rest of the crew. Carolyn's out. She promised she'll be back next week, so we'll see her then. But the other two great gents this week, first, Chase Livingston, how are you?
Doing very well, thanks.
And then Jeff Vincent from Wistia. How's Wistia land?
Oh, Wistia land is always the best land.
Always the best land. I'm trying to make... See, it's tough. So we got Wistia land, Buffer land, and Automatic land? I don't know.
Automaticville.
Automaticville. But it's got to be a play on camp since there's word camp. So maybe, I don't know, auto camp. I don't know. We'll work on that.
Yeah, we'll work on that.
All right, so like we mentioned this week, finding a mentor. For a new manager, having a mentor can really help with situations that you're not familiar with, or maybe you don't have an outlined policy somewhere. Mentors are also there to help a new manager become a better manager, to provide a sounding board, and basically just to help kind of guide you into this new role that you've taken on. So we want to talk about first why you need a mentor, and then second, how can you find that person. So we'll start with Jeff on this one. I think this is one of the things when we talked about this as being a big topic, you were enthusiastic to say the least. So why do you think finding a mentor is so important for a person?
So I think that I define mentor probably different than a lot of other people. But I'll just to answer this specific question up front, and then we can get kind of deeper into it. I love the idea of learning from other people who have either been there and tackled the problem you're about to tackle, or who just think in a way that you're like, wow, how did they I can't even figure out how the heck they did that. It's always so cool to get a leg up in that way. And for me, that's what I'm trying to do, right? I'm trying to solve problems and do things that make other people really happy, including myself. So having a mentor there by your side, in some fashion, who's either been there before or think, in a way that is helpful to you is a huge part of that leg up. I mean, there are very few books written about providing great support, right? I mean, I think you've written one of the only ones worth reading. And there's very few, there's no textbooks or graduate degrees you can get that I know of around providing support online for a SaaS business. So a lot of this stuff is getting written as we're living it, and having someone who's even been there 6 months ago is the best teacher you can have.
Yeah, I mean, there's Trump University, right? So where's Vincent University? That's what we need over the next year. That's what I want. I want to attend Vincent University, where I learn to make others and myself happy. Is that too much?
I will lend my name, but I'd prefer to have Chase Clemens, Chase Livingston, and Carolyn teaching that rather than me.
Oh, all right. So, Chase, same question over to you. Why, especially in an organization that's bigger than all the rest of us but combined, when we talk about Automatic, why is finding a mentor in that kind of big organization important?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things for us at Automatic is just learning to find your way around and how you fit into the giant, culture and machine that is Automatic. So each new employee at Automatic is actually assigned a mentor when they start, and just obviously generally somebody who's been around for a little bit or maybe even a lot longer than that person has, and it's just somebody you can go to ask questions like, hey, I'm not really sure how to set up benefits, or even stuff simple as that. Sort of getting acclimated within the company, and then obviously there are also those kinds of questions of the history that's there around certain decisions that have been made for the company, way back when, and that kind of thing. So I think it's important at definitely in an organization our size, just to help fit in and learn about the organization and the history behind the organization that's happened obviously before you even started.
Yeah, and I was talking about this topic with Phil Thompson earlier. He's the guy that he's a support team lead over at FreshBooks, and I think we've had him on the show a couple of times. And he said something that really stuck with me, and it's basically what you two have echoed so far. He said the most useful part of having a mentor is that you don't know what you don't know. And it's hard to ask the right questions or even know where to look when you don't even know what questions you should be asking or where to look. So I think that's a pretty big part, especially as a new manager. I know when I step into new manager roles, that's one of the first things I do is find a mentor who's already been there and done some of this. And we'll delve into this a little bit more, but there's always like an in-company mentor, someone that's going to help you find your way around the company itself in this new job that you're in, and then kind of just a general mentor that can be outside of the company too to kind of help you tackle just bigger problems and bigger questions that might arise. Yeah, so Jeff, let's start with kind of an easy one, hopefully. If I'm a new manager, how do I go about finding someone that I can kind of fall under their mentorship?
Oh man, I could take any question and make it hard, Chase.
Yeah, well, I mean, Chase Livingston already had the easy answer. You're assigned one, so you don't even have to go look. You just get one.
Challenge accepted. So I think I think about mentorship a little bit differently, like I was saying before, in that I've never had a single. I don't know if I can say I've never had, but in my current role, like my most recent roles, I've never had an explicit mentor. I might have someone who is my manager, and they're kind of looking out for me, and we might have a one-on-one about my progress, and I learn a ton from them. But it's always been, I guess, really important to me to surround myself with people who are peers or maybe one step ahead of me or who just think completely differently than I do, or people who think or who are thinking about different problems that I find interesting. Like if you've got those four things, and it also helps to have some friends who are thinking about, nothing related to business and they just want to talk personal stuff just to keep your kind of feet on the ground, then I think you've got all the pieces for making really great personal growth. I guess I've never really been in love with the idea that there's a person who can kind of like put out the breadcrumbs in front of me, and I'm just following their lead. But instead, I like to be more. I guess I see myself as more someone who doesn't like to read the manual, but I like to make mistakes and then talk to somebody about the specific problem that I'm having and get their input, right? So a situation I'll get into quite frequently is like, I didn't see this coming, but now I've really got myself into a pickle with X, Y, and Z, and I actually understand the problem now, right? Because I've been through it. I'm thinking about going down this path. What do you think? And I might take that to 2 or 3 different people, and I might take it to someone who's more of a people person than me, more of an emotional person than me. I might take it to someone who's more of an analytical, and data-driven person than I am. I might take it to somebody who's more of a business, an experienced business person than I am, someone who's really going to be thinking about the impact on the business, depending on the problem, and get their thoughts both on like what I'm thinking about doing and what they're planning on doing, and I guess all that put together ends up being the role of mentor for me. So I guess the really important elements are like for me at least, are like I really have to make the mistake. Like I have to get myself into the problem so that I can speak into the problem really clearly, and it's not just, I'm kind of trying to avoid this thing that I think is out there. I can't say much about it. I really know what the problem is. I know how it feels. I know how it got here, and then I can get myself out.
I like it. Just wade into the problem and then worry about it.
Yeah, it's just preparing to be wrong all the time, and preparing to open yourself up. I mean, you get mentorship from people who have been at Wistia for longer than I have, people who joined only a few weeks ago in what someone from the outside would consider like an entry level role. I mean, they just think differently than I do, and there's no harm, if we're just having a conversation over lunch or, catching up about something else. I mean, who's to say who won't have, input into a potential solution for me? So I love just defining it as broadly as you can and getting mentorship from everywhere, as opposed to saying, well, it's someone who's been in the business way longer than I have, or whatever. I think that just it excludes people that could help you.
Yeah, for a long time, it was always kind of this traditional mentor-mentee role, especially some of the past companies I've worked for. It was, you join up, you get assigned a mentor, and then they kind of help guide you through it. It was that one person that you can go to, kind of like Chase was mentioning. And that's great when you're learning the ropes of a new company, learning why certain decisions were made, learning company history and all that. And kind of what comes to mind, I don't know if y'all watch 30 Rock, but the relationship that Jack has with Liz there, it's very defined as a mentor-mentee relationship, and both of them acknowledge it that way. When she has problems, she goes to him for advice and things. But yeah, I think with that Jeff, you're onto something, because for me, I'm the same way. There's not one person, and only one person that I go to with when I need advice or counsel or things. There's usually several different people involved, and there's even multiple people involved who might be good at one thing and not good at something else. Um, so is that kind of where things are going to be going now? Like for a new manager at a SaaS company like Wistia, like Basecamp or anything like that, should they be looking for one specific person, or is it more kind of a small council of people that they should be going to? And I should point out too, at this point, for our audio listeners, Chase Livingston's in the middle of a storm and has dropped out. So now you get the Chase and Jeff show. So just sit back and hold on.
Oh, finally. Um,
I think that, on a
so
side note, that's kind of our two new courses at Vincent University. First, it's wade in and break things, then look for help. And then two, just hang on for the ride. Like, those are two good courses there.
those are my only courses.
Yeah, so what should we look for? One person
So,
as a mentor, small council of people?
so I'm biased, but I really like the small council. I really, really like the small council because it breaks me out of that myopic thinking, and it also lowers. I'm not sure how to say this, but it lowers the barrier for me of getting input from someone that thinks totally different than I do and is about to tell me that what I'm about to do is dumb. Right? If I only got the one mentor, it's going to be really painful if I know that every time we have a conversation, they're like, Jeff, what are you thinking? Like, you get that one mentor and you kind of want to make them happy. You kind of want them to be saying, man, you're crushing it. You're really getting it. You're really growing. And I think that's really great. If you have a council of mentors, there's going to be times that you need to edge more on the data side, right? And the person who's super people focused is like, I don't know, like it seems like you're making a lot of change really fast, right? And there's other times you've got to hew more on the people side, and the data person's like, I'm not seeing anything in here that tells me that you're making nearly enough change, and you're just feeling it out as you go. And I think that mentality of the council really opens you up to get more out of each and every conversation. And with the tools that are available today, there's like more than, the whole support driven Slack channel could just be full of mentors for you if you look at it that way, as opposed to saying, well, this person over here is really my mentor. Maybe I'll ask occasionally questions of other people, but I mostly just kind of stick to what this person thinks. I think you're really setting yourself up for I don't know, for just not having the diverse perspective that I think it takes to do it really, really well.
And it's one of those where, with the example you had, you go to your data person and get their advice on this specific thing. When you go on to that next person, that next mentor that you want to talk to, you can bring up some of the points from your data guy to see what that person's reaction is, and kind of further, just kind of further get more out of the advice. Because there might be some things, if you're talking to your data guy, you might not know all the questions that you need to ask at that right moment, but you go over to your next person and they might know the right questions that you need to be asking. So you're going to get a better experience is not quite the right word there, but you're going to get a better overall view of the situation, I think, in that way.
I think that's right. Charlie Munger, who is Warren Buffett's partner in crime, he has this great, well, he's offered it many times, but he's got this great interview he gave where someone was asking him about what it takes to have a good opinion. And that's exactly what he says is you need to understand the other side of the argument better than that person does before you can really have a good opinion and hold a good argument. And I think the same is true for when you're tackling with these really tough problems that you need mentors for, is you need to know the really, well, I find it really helps to know the data-driven side, the business impact side, the people side, so that you don't necessarily follow any of those paths. Maybe you discover a creative, like a new creative solution that combines all of them together. I think that's where things just really take off, because I feel like I've had the opportunity, like an incredible opportunity, to talk to people who've been in the industry for 10 or 15 years, right? Like a lot longer time than I have. And yet even, for them, they've only been around 2 or 3 different companies, right? They've only seen some of these problems once, and they're offering their experience, and that's really great, but they had one shot at it. It doesn't necessarily make sense for me to say, oh, that worked for you, like, let me follow in your footsteps. Let me try to retrace exactly what you did. Instead, I've got to map it to what's different about our company. And I feel like I can only do that with those diverse perspectives, like you're saying.
Yeah, which you bring up a interesting thing that I want to dive into a little bit. When we think about, again, traditional mentorship kind of things, it tends to be in company only. I'm kind of like you. It's you might want some people in company, you want some people outside of it, like the support driven community, and other support pros that you might be talking to. I was talking to, like I mentioned, to Phil from FreshBooks earlier, and the only reason him and I hooked up is because he had reached out to you to ask for advice on something, and then you one of the last things he asked you was, hey, do you know anybody else that I could get advice from? And you pointed my way. And I feel like I've gotten as much from that relationship out of Phil that he has from me. He's a little bit smarter than me, I think. But yeah, is it how important is it to have mentors both in your company, in your industry, and people outside of the industry, people that might not be as familiar with like support per se, but can still bring perspective into it?
That's a great question. I got to say that I think Phil is really great. And I think I definitely agree that he is much smarter than all of us, except maybe Carolyn. She's still our resident genius, but I think that Phil is super, super smart, and a great guy. I personally think it's great. I've had a lot of great experience talking about the problems that I'm running into with people who have no context for what I'm talking about. Because if you ever go to a support related event or event related to the work that you're doing, you start talking about the problem and it already feels like the other person can finish your sentence, right? The other person either knows that exists, or they already have kind of a solution cooked up in their head, or they're mapping that problem onto their team or whatever and saying that could never happen at my company. And you don't get the chance to really explain the problem in those first principle terms, those like really basic terms. When I'm talking to somebody who has no idea what I'm talking about, I really get the chance to zoom out in a way that I don't in that like echo chamber of either talking about it with other people that I work directly with, or talking about it with other people who have a lot of context for what I'm talking about. So it's wonderful to be able to zoom that far out and say, I remember a conversation I was having. I was talking about how you provide support all the time, how you provide responsive support 24/7, and saying, well, we want to have really great support all the time, but we're challenged by we're only in one time zone. And rather than that person saying, well, what you need to do is XYZ, you need to go hire people in Australia, or what you should do is just have shifts, right? The person was reflecting kind of on their own version of that problem and saying, well, do you have anything else that could kind of stand in for you while you're not there? And it was like, whoa, our videos and our documentation really should reflect our voice and should be able to stand in for us when we're not there. And now we've spent the last, year and a half really focused on our documentation and on our resources, our video resources and teaching resources because of that conversation, right? And I don't think it would have happened necessarily if I'd been talking to somebody who had experienced remote hiring. I think they would have pointed me at some remote hiring resources and told me about the struggles that they had and then said, go forth.
Yeah, I would have done the same thing.
Yeah.
It's one of those where if you had asked me that question, I'd be like, yeah, you need to expand your team and put them in other time zones, because that's how Basecamp did it, right? That was, we want to get 24/7 support. We want to get replies down as quick as we can. And for us, being a remote company, the answer was right there. It was hire more remote folks in other time zones, and that'll let you do it. So that's a perfect example. You could have come to me and asked me that, and I would have given you the exact answer that you didn't need at that moment, because what worked for me should work. So yeah,
Right.
I think that's a perfect kind of scenario there where you need multiple voices, both inside and outside. Yeah, and that's one of those. Go ahead.
It's also, I mean, I don't want to paint the picture that what you need from a mentor is somebody that doesn't have any context for what you're going through, right? Because it is really helpful to be able to talk at length with someone who knows just enough about the scenario to be helpful without someone who's like living it, right? So that they can help you zoom out a little bit. But yeah, I mean, the focus here is getting a diverse opinion set so that you can make the best decision possible, right? A mix of people who are experienced and maybe a bunch of beginners' minds, people who are just like, why do you even need to do that? Like, what's telling you that you need support 24 hours a day? And it's like, well, I don't know. I honestly don't know the market. I'm really not sure. You need both of those, and I think that is where that like council of mentors can be really helpful. And maybe you're even putting that together like on the fly per issue, right? I know really smart people who are very active and do it that way. It's like, well, who can I talk to about this problem, as opposed to saying, well, I have my council of 7 that I always go to for every problem.
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, and correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but I think you would agree. It's the idea that you have one mentor, one person, is just not as effective. And it's really easy to fall into the trap of, oh, I'm brand new to this industry, or I'm a brand new manager, or I'm brand new to the company, whatever. And I need to find one person that I can hang my hat on that will show me the golden way forward, leave those breadcrumbs, as you mentioned earlier. And that's just, in this day and age, when it's so easy to connect with other people, both inside and outside your company, inside and outside your industry, there's no reason why you shouldn't have diverse group of voices helping you out. Um, uh, because, like you mentioned, I've learned just as much from experienced people as I have from people brand new. And a good example is we were talking in episode 109. I think it was 109. Yeah, it was 109. Let's experiment. We were talking about that sometimes the best kind of view about your product is customers brand new to your product, and new hires brand new to your product. I've gotten lots of good counsel from our new COO hire that we made, because she was brand new to the company and wasn't kind of entrenched in this is the way that we've always done it, and this is the way that you should do it. So if for our listeners, if you don't take anything else away from this one, take away that at least Jeff and I can't speak for Chase and Carolyn, but at least Jeff and I think you should have the council. Think that you should have a diverse group. And for me, I think, and we can kind of end the conversation on this note and kind of wrap things up. For me, I think that I would have kind of not necessarily like a set group of 7 or whatever number it is, but I think I would have at least a handful of people that that I regularly go to, just because I think at that point they become more familiar with me. I think get more familiar with certain situations. They might not have all the context, but being familiar kind of takes out that new relationship kind of thing. And what I mean by that is, so if I don't know, if I have a group of people that I normally go to about like farm related stuff, for instance, every now and then I would go to Jeff and be like, "Hey, Jeff, what do you think of this?" But I don't think I would go to you for like routine things that the farm guys could handle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, that no, that absolutely makes sense. And yeah, for me, it's just that things are moving. I've maybe I mean, I don't have my experience to draw from, but things are moving so fast for me, and I'm experiencing so many problems that I need advice on, that to go to one person, it would be a full-time job for that other person to help me along, right? Maybe I'm the only one that runs into daily problems in just about every facet of my life, but I feel like that's the way that many of the managers, experienced and new, that I talk to, that's where they're at, right? Is there's always something that they're kind of noodling on, always something that they're trying to come at different perspectives on. And to have one mentor, I mean, that person would be completely overrun. That being said, there are different people in my life that I look to as a mentor for X, right? My wife's grandfather is a mentor for me in how to build a successful family, right? He's done something really special with his sons and their families. And so when I'm, talking to him, I'm always trying to pull stuff out of him about how he broke down work life, how he raised his kids, how, sharing where I am on that track, and hoping that I'm making, directional progress in the right way. But then again, when I run into a problem, related to remote work, I'm not calling because, the last time he was in the office was like in the late 70s or whatever. So he would be like, what is Slack? So yeah, you just gotta have that group around you. And I feel like, just even if you do have that group, I feel like don't count out any conversation that you have as being a good opportunity to just bounce some ideas off of people. Because at least that's how I work, is like I have to talk through stuff in order to make sense of it. I have to practice kind of like my pitch on the problem a few times to make sure that I've worked out all the logical loopholes and all the kinks. And you never know in the process of that sharing when someone who is just barely paying attention, or who has no experience in that subject matter at all, isn't going to say something that just blows your mind. Um, yeah,
Yeah, I
that's all I
think.
got.
Yeah, and just to put a bow on everything, the last thing you mentioned there, kind of having worked through everything and have a pitch ready for them. Like, obviously, you don't have to do a big 4 point PowerPoint presentation or whatever, but these people that you're talking to, you're taking up their time, and a lot of times they're not hired full time, like Jeff mentioned. So make sure that you've kind of got things together rather than just like rambling through an hour and a half worth of coffee conversation with them when you need their advice, because I mean they're just as busy as you are, so you don't want to take up their time and all. So, all right, that's our take on this one. Let us know what you think. Hit us up. Hello@supportops.co is the email, and we're at supportops on Twitter. If you're feeling generous this week, like every week, do us a favor, tell a friend about the show, share your favorite episode on Twitter. We've got just a few episodes left in this new manager series, so if there's something that you want us to cover that we haven't covered yet, we've got 1 or 2 slots built in at the end just for that. So you can drop us a line, hello@supportops.co, or on Twitter @supportops there, and let us know what you want to see us cover. So that's it for us. Thanks again for listening, and until we see you again next week with our full crew back, and hopefully Chase Livingston won't drop out on storms. Yeah, until we see you then, have an awesome week.